Christine Livieri, your paleo practitioner. The subject of today's video lesson is the acid-base balance. If you eat grains, you really need to know this stuff. You see, all the foods that we eat have either an acid or an alkaline byproduct of metabolism. If we consume more acidic producing foods, as most Americans do, it will throw off your pH balance, and this is bad. The pH balance in our bloodstream must be at a constant 7.35 to 7.45 on the pH scale of 0 to 14. If it ever comes out of this very narrow therapeutic range, you're extremely sick and you'll know it. But we really can't come out of this range. Your body will never allow it. In fact, the only people who ever really come out of this range are the people who have chronic and very, very advanced kidney problems, because your kidneys are the responsible organ to make sure that your blood pH is always kept even. So the acid-producing foods that human beings consume are animal products like meats, fish, and eggs. However, our bodies are designed to eat these foods. And therefore, evolutionarily speaking, we have developed to be able to release insulin-like growth factor, IGF-1, which buffers the acid load and actually triggers bone growth and mineralization. The second acid-producing foods that human beings consume are cheese. And some of the highest of the acid-producing foods are cheese, and therefore should be consumed in very small quantities. This is not a natural food for human beings to eat, but it is for baby cows. You'll find more information about cheese in the other video lessons. The third very acid-producing foods that human beings consume are grains and legumes, with brown rice and oats leading the way to acid production. This category is certainly not something that humans should eat if you want healthy, strong bones. You see, brown rice, and especially oats, have the highest level of acid-producing byproduct in metabolism. So all those commercials you hear about how you can eat healthy whole grains and healthy oats, not if you want healthy, strong bones, you can't. Now let's talk a little bit about alkaline-producing foods, which is the opposite of the acid-producing foods, vegetables and fruits. The net alkaline load is very healthy for humans to consume, and in large quantities. Because when you eat a lot of vegetables and fruit, it will balance the acid load from the meats and the animal products. But once you add a high amount of cheese and grains, you tip your bloodstream into an acid-producing environment, and that can never happen. So many Americans eat grains as the bulk of our daily food consumed. This is definitely the result of the old and very misguided food pyramid that we all learned in the past, which put grains and starches at the bottom, representing the largest recommended consumption of daily calories. Recently, it's been changed to the plate method, with whole grains representing 25% of our meal. And this is still excessive. And don't even get me started on whole grains as opposed to refined grains, because there's no difference. Don't think whole grains are healthier. For optimal health, grains need to be eliminated. So what's so bad about the net acid load in our diet? Christine, you just said that it can never come out of that balance, so your body's going to keep it going. So what does it matter? Well, because our bodies must maintain that very narrow therapeutic range of acceptable blood pH for healthy human physiology, it dictates that it must buffer the acid with something alkaline. So if you're not eating an awful lot of vegetables and some fruit to buffer all that acid, your body's going to do it on its own. That means that it's going to take bicarbonate out of your bloodstream, but more often and more likely, it's going to take calcium carbonate and calcium phosphate right out of your bones. It's all about balance. So when the Dairy Council tells Americans to increase their intake of calcium in the diet with more dairy, which is acid producing, they say you have to have your 3 portions of dairy a day. But they don't tell you that by eating more calcium in the form of dairy products, then it's actually going to cause another disease. Now, we also take calcium supplements, but a high intake of grains and legumes and cheese actually works against our bone health. You see, because it's not about the intake of your calcium. Americans, we got that down. We know how to get calcium in our diet. It's about excretion. So osteoporosis is just around the corner. And you're doing exactly what your medical practitioner tells you to do. Increase calcium intake and get more dairy in your diet. We add that to the medical advice to take an antacid medication for reflux disease, which, by the way, reduces the production of acid in the stomach. Did you know that you cannot absorb adequate dietary calcium, whether it's from your food or from a pill, unless you provide an acid environment in your stomach? So you decrease your stomach acid, like you're told to do by your doctor, and you will also continue to contribute to more bone loss. So again, you improve one disease and you create another. And by the way, reducing your grain consumption, and you're probably going to reduce your reflux symptoms. So if you believe you're at high risk for osteoporosis, you may have the following risk factors: being female, advancing age, whether you're male or female, if you're petite, male or female, Caucasian or Asian descent, and having a fair complexion. All of these put you at very high risk for osteoporosis, so you don't want to fool around with this. It's not about calcium consumption. It's about calcium excretion. So ask your practitioner to run a 24-hour urine test for calcium excretion and see if you're losing more calcium than you need to in your urine. And men, I just read an article recently that says men are not immune to osteoporosis. And also have a regular DEXA scan. A DEXA is DEXA. That's a bone density scan, especially if you have these risk factors I just mentioned, if you're postmenopausal female, or if you have a family history of bone fractures, or of course if you just eat grains and dairy. And then you'll see whether or not you have the risk for osteopenia, which is a little bit of bone loss, or osteoporosis, which is severe bone loss. I happen to know that if you eat a paleo eating pattern, you will not necessarily consume more calcium, but you will certainly excrete much less. You may even see your DEXA scans improve. I've seen that many times. And this is just another reason to go paleo. Thank you. I'm Christine Olivieri, your paleo practitioner.